I was scrolling through social media when I saw wedding photos of my twin sister Isabel marrying my ex-boyfriend Ryan. But something was wrong. In every single photo, she was wearing my name. The marriage certificate, the wedding invitations, even the minister was calling her by my name, Victoria. My own sister had stolen my identity to marry the man who broke my heart, and now I had evidence of federal fraud. Before I dive into this story of the ultimate betrayal by the person who was supposed to be closest to me and the legal justice that followed, let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. Hit that like button if you've ever been betrayed by family members you trusted completely, and subscribe to True Revenge for more stories of justice served cold. My name is Victoria, I'm 25 years old, and until 3 months ago I thought I knew everything about my twin sister Isabel. We shared the same face, the same birthday, and what I thought was an unbreakable bond. This story begins with sibling rivalry and ends with federal charges that destroyed 2 lives built on stolen identity. Isabel and I are identical twins, born just 12 minutes apart. I'm the older twin, something I'd teasingly reminded her of our entire lives. Growing up, people constantly confused us, despite our different personalities. I was always the responsible one, good grades, following rules, thinking before acting. Isabel was more impulsive, charming, and willing to take risks that often got her into trouble. Our parents, trying to help us develop individual identities, made sure we had different friends, different activities, and different styles. I played violin and joined the debate team, while Isabel did theater and cheerleading. But despite their efforts, we remained incredibly close throughout childhood and high school. The first real crack in our relationship appeared in college. We'd both been accepted to the same university, but Isabel struggled academically while I excelled. She began borrowing my textbooks, then my notes, then asking me to help with assignments that crossed the line into doing them for her. "We're twins," she'd say when I hesitated. "Helping each other is what we do. Besides, you're naturally better at this stuff than I am." I enabled her because I loved her and wanted her to succeed. When she was placed on academic probation, I helped her write essays to bring her grades up. When she nearly failed statistics, I took the final exam for her while she created a distraction by accidentally setting off the fire alarm in another building. Looking back, those were the first signs that Isabel had no problem using our identical appearance for deception. But I rationalized it as sisterly support rather than recognizing the pattern of manipulation that would eventually escalate to identity theft. After graduation, we both moved to Chicago. I found a job as a marketing coordinator at a tech startup, while Isabel bounced between jobs in retail and hospitality. She was always charming enough to get hired quickly, but struggled to keep positions long-term due to attendance issues and conflicts with management. During this period, I met Ryan Foster at a coffee shop near my office. He was 27, worked as a personal trainer, and had the kind of easy confidence that immediately attracted me. We started dating, and for the first time in my life, I was in a serious relationship that felt like it might lead somewhere permanent. Ryan and I dated for 8 months, and I genuinely thought we had a future together. He was sweet, funny, and seemed completely devoted to me. He'd bring me flowers at work, plan romantic dates, and talk about moving in together once my lease ended. Isabel met Ryan early in our relationship and seemed happy for me. She'd join us occasionally for dinner or group activities, and Ryan always treated her like the sister-in-law he might someday become. I noticed he was sometimes confused about which twin was which, especially when we wore similar clothes, but that seemed normal given how identical we looked. Problems started about 6 months into my relationship with Ryan. Isabel began having what she called emergencies that required borrowing my car, my credit cards, or my apartment for various reasons. Her landlord was showing her apartment to potential buyers, so she needed to stay with me for a week. Her car broke down, so she needed to borrow mine for job interviews. Her credit card was compromised, so she needed to use mine for essential purchases. Each request seemed reasonable individually, but the pattern of constant need was exhausting. I found myself supporting Isabel financially and practically while trying to maintain my own life and relationship. The real warning sign came when I noticed Ryan seemed to know things about me that I hadn't told him. He'd reference conversations we'd supposedly had that I couldn't remember, or mention plans I didn't recall making. "Remember when you told me about your childhood fear of horses?" he asked one evening during dinner. "I've never been afraid of horses," I replied, confused. "I love horses. I took riding lessons for years." "That's weird," Ryan said, frowning. "You specifically told me about getting thrown off a horse when you were 8 and being terrified of them ever since." I had no memory of any such conversation, and the story didn't match my experience at all. But Ryan seemed so certain that I began to doubt my own memory. Similar incidents occurred several times over the following weeks. Ryan would reference movies I'd supposedly watched together, restaurants I'd apparently recommended, or opinions I'd allegedly expressed that didn't match my actual preferences or experiences. Truth became clear when I came home early from work one day and found Isabel in my apartment, wearing my clothes and talking on the phone in my bedroom. She was speaking in a slightly different voice, one that sounded more like how I spoke, and she was discussing weekend plans with someone. "I can't wait to see you," she was saying. "It feels like it's been forever since we spent quality time together." When she saw me in the doorway, Isabel quickly hung up the phone, looking guilty and panicked. "Victoria, I didn't expect you home so early. Who were you talking to?" I asked, though I was beginning to suspect the answer. "Just a friend. Planning some weekend activities." "Isabel, were you talking to Ryan?" She didn't answer, but her expression confirmed my suspicions. "Have you been pretending to be me when you talk to Ryan?" "It's not what you think," she said quickly. "I just answered your phone a couple of times when you were in the shower and he started talking to me, thinking I was you. I didn't want to embarrass him by correcting the mistake." "How many times, Isabel?" "Just a few," she said, but I could tell she was lying. Over the next several days, I began paying closer attention to Ryan's references to conversations and experiences I couldn't remember. A disturbing pattern emerged. Many of the things Ryan attributed to me had actually happened to Isabel or reflected her preferences rather than mine. When I confronted Ryan about the confusion, he became defensive. "Victoria, I know you're my girlfriend. Why would you ask me something like that?" "Because you keep talking about conversations and experiences that I don't remember, and they sound more like things Isabel would say or do." "Are you suggesting I can't tell you apart from your sister?" Ryan asked, seeming offended. "I think I know my own girlfriend." But his response made me wonder if he actually could tell us apart, especially when we wore similar clothes or styled our hair the same way. The relationship began deteriorating rapidly after that conversation. Ryan became distant and sometimes seemed frustrated with me for not remembering things I'd supposedly said or done. I became suspicious and started questioning everything, wondering how much of our relationship had actually been with me versus my sister. 8 months after we started dating, Ryan broke up with me via text message. "I think we want different things," the message read. "You've been acting different lately, and I don't think this is working anymore." I was devastated. Despite the recent confusion and problems, I genuinely loved Ryan and thought we were working through a rough patch rather than heading toward a breakup. Isabel was surprisingly supportive during my heartbreak, bringing me ice cream, listening to me cry, and assuring me that Ryan was an idiot who didn't deserve me. "You're better off without him," she said repeatedly. "Any guy who would break up with you over text doesn't understand how amazing you are." For 2 weeks, Isabel was the perfect supportive sister, helping me process the breakup and encouraging me to focus on moving forward with my life. Then she disappeared. "I need to take some time for myself," she told me. "I'm going on a solo trip to figure out what I want to do with my life. Don't worry if you can't reach me. I'm going to disconnect from social media and really focus on self-reflection." I thought it was healthy for Isabel to take time for personal growth. She'd been struggling with direction in her career and personal life, and a retreat seemed like exactly what she needed. For 3 weeks, I heard nothing from Isabel. Her phone went straight to voicemail, her social media accounts went dark, and she didn't respond to emails or texts. I assumed she was keeping her promise to disconnect and focus on herself. Then the wedding photos appeared. I was scrolling through Instagram on a Sunday afternoon when I saw a post from Ryan's account. The caption read, "Best day of my life marrying the woman of my dreams," followed by heart emojis and hashtags about true love and new beginnings. My heart stopped as I opened the photos. There was Ryan in a black tuxedo, beaming at the camera. Next to him, in a white wedding dress, was someone who looked exactly like me. But it wasn't me. It was Isabel, wearing a wedding dress, holding a bouquet, and standing next to my ex-boyfriend at what was clearly their wedding ceremony. My first thought was that this had to be some kind of mistake or cruel joke. Ryan had broken up with me just 3 weeks ago. How could he possibly be married to my sister already? But as I scrolled through the dozens of photos, the reality became undeniable. Isabel and Ryan had gotten married, and from the elaborate nature of the ceremony, this wasn't a spontaneous decision. This had been planned for weeks, possibly months. The betrayal was devastating. My twin sister and my ex-boyfriend had been carrying on a relationship behind my back, then staged a wedding immediately after he broke up with me. But as I looked more closely at the photos, I noticed something even more disturbing. In the pictures of the ceremony, the minister was clearly addressing the bride as Victoria. The wedding programs visible in guests' hands listed the bride as Victoria Thompson. Even the hashtags on social media posts from wedding guests referred to hashtag Victoria and Ryan wedding. Isabel hadn't just married my ex-boyfriend. She had married him using my name. I took screenshots of every photo and social media post, then called the venue listed in the wedding hashtags. "Hello, I'm calling about the Thompson Foster wedding that took place there last Saturday," I said to the events coordinator. "Oh yes, beautiful ceremony," she replied enthusiastically. "Victoria and Ryan were such a lovely couple. Can you confirm the full name of the bride for me?" "Of course. Victoria Rose Thompson." She was absolutely radiant. "Victoria Rose Thompson is my full name. Isabel is Isabel Grace Thompson. My sister had not only stolen my ex-boyfriend, but she had also stolen my identity to marry him." I immediately drove to the courthouse where the marriage license would have been filed. As a matter of public record, I was able to request a copy of the marriage certificate. The document was legally filed under the names Victoria Rose Thompson and Ryan Michael Foster. My social security number was listed as the bride's identification. The signature on the marriage certificate was a reasonably good forgery of my handwriting. Isabel had committed identity theft and marriage fraud, creating a legal marriage under my name while I was completely unaware. I called my bank to check for any unusual activity on my accounts. Customer service representative informed me that my savings account had been used to pay for a $8,000 wedding venue deposit 3 weeks earlier. "Ma'am, you authorized this payment yourself," the representative explained. "The transaction was made in person at our downtown branch with proper identification. Isabel had used my identity to access my bank account and pay for her own wedding." I immediately froze all my accounts and requested security footage from the bank. The video clearly showed Isabel, using what appeared to be my driver's license, withdrawing money to pay for wedding expenses. The scope of the fraud was becoming clear. Isabel had not only stolen my identity to get married, she had used my financial accounts to pay for the wedding itself. That evening, I called the police to report identity theft and fraud. Detective Chen was assigned to my case and was immediately interested in the evidence I'd gathered. "Identity theft for the purpose of marriage is a federal crime," she explained. "If your sister used your social security number and identification to obtain a marriage license, she's committed multiple felonies." "What about Ryan? Did he know what was happening?" "That's something we'll need to investigate. If he were aware that his bride was using a stolen identity, he could be charged as an accomplice to fraud." Detective Chen advised me to gather all possible evidence while she initiated an official investigation. I spent the next several days documenting everything: the social media posts, the marriage certificate, the bank records, and witness statements from people who had attended the wedding. The most damning evidence came from the wedding photographer, who provided me with hundreds of high-resolution photos from the ceremony. In many of the images, you could clearly see the wedding programs, place cards, and decorations that all featured my name paired with Ryan's. More importantly, several photos showed Isabel's purse open on a table, revealing what appeared to be my driver's license inside. A week after filing the police report, federal agents knocked on Isabel and Ryan's door. They had been living together in an apartment Ryan had rented under both their names, or rather, under Ryan's name and my name. The arrest was swift and comprehensive. Isabel was charged with identity theft, bank fraud, and fraudulent marriage. Ryan was initially charged as an accomplice, though his involvement was still being investigated. When the agents searched their apartment, they found a box containing multiple forms of identification in my name: a driver's license, social security card, and even a passport. Isabel had been systematically stealing my identity for months, possibly longer. They also found evidence that Isabel had been practicing my signature and had taken photos of my important documents during her frequent visits to my apartment. The investigation revealed that the identity theft had been planned for months. Isabel had been using my identity to apply for credit cards, open bank accounts, and even file tax returns. The marriage to Ryan was just the most elaborate use of my stolen identity. Ryan's involvement was more complicated than initially appeared. Phone records showed that Isabel had been texting with Ryan using my phone number for weeks before they got married. She had been impersonating me in their relationship, leading Ryan to believe he was communicating with me even after our breakup. The breakup text I'd received had actually been from Isabel, using Ryan's phone to end my relationship so she could pursue him using my identity. Ryan claimed he genuinely believed he was marrying me, not Isabel. According to his statement, Isabel had told him that I'd been going through a personality crisis that explained my changed behavior and appearance choices. She said Victoria was experimenting with different looks and attitudes, Ryan told investigators. I thought my girlfriend was just going through some kind of phase. Whether Ryan was truly deceived or willingly participated in the fraud became a central question in the prosecution's case. The evidence against Isabel was overwhelming. In addition to the identity documents and bank fraud, investigators found that she had been living as me for weeks before the wedding. She had used my identity to quit my job, claiming that I was moving out of state for a new opportunity. My employer confirmed that someone claiming to be me had called to resign, providing personal information that only I should have known. Isabel had been systematically dismantling my life while building a new one using my identity. The trial lasted 6 weeks. Isabel's defense attorney argued that the identity theft was a result of mental health issues and twin identity confusion rather than malicious fraud. My client has struggled with establishing her own identity separate from her twin sister, the lawyer argued. This was a misguided attempt to experience the life she thought she deserved rather than a calculated crime. Prosecution countered with evidence showing premeditation and elaborate planning. The months of document theft, signature practice, and careful impersonation demonstrated clear criminal intent rather than mental health struggles. Ryan ultimately agreed to testify against Isabel in exchange for reduced charges. His testimony revealed that Isabel had been manipulating both of us for months, pretending to be me during phone calls and text conversations while gradually transitioning him from a relationship with me to a relationship with her using my identity. She would say things like, "I feel different lately," or "I'm becoming the person I was always meant to be," Ryan testified. I thought Victoria was going through personal growth, not that someone else was pretending to be her. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours before finding Isabel guilty on all charges: identity theft, bank fraud, marriage fraud, and conspiracy. She was sentenced to 3 years in federal prison and ordered to pay restitution for all financial damages, including the cost of restoring my credit and legal fees. Ryan received 2 years probation and community service. While the court found that he had been partially deceived, his failure to recognize obvious signs that something was wrong made him complicit in the fraud. The marriage was immediately annulled, and all financial accounts opened using my identity were closed. My credit report was cleared of any activity related to Isabel's fraud, though the process took months to complete. The most difficult part of the aftermath was dealing with the relationship damage. Friends and family members struggled to understand how one twin could so completely betray the other. Some people blamed me for enabling Isabel's behavior by helping her in college and allowing her access to my apartment and personal documents. My parents were devastated. They felt responsible for not recognizing Isabel's escalating deception and for not protecting me from my own sister. "We always knew Isabel was more impulsive than you," my mother said tearfully. "But we never imagined she would do something this destructive." The hardest part was mourning not just the betrayal, but the loss of the relationship I'd thought I had with my twin sister. The person I'd trusted most in the world had systematically stolen my identity and destroyed my life for her own benefit. During Isabel's sentencing, she was given the opportunity to make a statement. I hoped for an apology, some acknowledgement of the harm she'd caused, or at least an explanation that would help me understand why she'd done this. Instead, she blamed me. "Victoria always had everything easy," she said, addressing the court but looking directly at me. "Good grades, good job, good boyfriend. I was tired of living in her shadow. I deserved to have those things too." Even facing prison time, Isabel couldn't take responsibility for her actions or acknowledge that she'd committed serious crimes. In her mind, she was entitled to my life simply because she wanted it. Today, 2 years after the trial, I'm rebuilding my life with new awareness of the importance of protecting my personal information and maintaining healthy boundaries, even with family members. I've moved to a different city, started a new job, and slowly begun dating again. The experience taught me to pay attention to red flags in relationships and to trust my instincts when something feels wrong. Isabel was released from federal prison 6 months ago and is living in another state. We have no contact, and I have no plans to rebuild our relationship. Some betrayals are simply too fundamental to forgive or move past. The identity theft destroyed more than just my credit score or bank accounts. It destroyed my ability to trust the person who was supposed to be closest to me and forced me to rebuild my sense of self separate from the twin identity that had defined me for 25 years. But in some ways, the experience also freed me. I learned that I'm stronger than I thought, that I can rebuild from complete betrayal, and that my identity is more than just the documents or accounts that someone can steal. Ryan attempted to contact me several times after his release from prison, claiming he wanted to apologize and explain his actions. I never responded. Whether he was truly deceived or willingly participated in Isabel's fraud, his failure to recognize obvious signs that something was wrong showed a fundamental lack of awareness that made any relationship impossible. The wedding photos that exposed Isabel's fraud are now evidence in a federal case file. What she intended as a celebration of her successful deception became the proof that destroyed her life and sent her to prison. Sometimes the evidence of people's crimes is hidden in plain sight, posted on social media for the world to see. Sometimes the people we trust most are the ones most capable of devastating betrayal. But sometimes justice finds a way, and the truth comes out even when it's hidden behind stolen identities and elaborate lies. If you enjoyed this story of identity theft and justice served, please give this video a like and subscribe to True Revenge for more stories of consequences. Share your own experiences with identity theft or family betrayal in the comments below. Have you ever discovered that someone you trusted was living a lie? Remember, protect your personal documents and information, even from family members who seem trustworthy. Identity theft can happen closer to home than you think, and the people who have the most access to your information are often the ones who can cause the most damage. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember, your identity is precious and worth protecting, even from the people who share your DNA.